Howdy folks, welcome to another beautiful day out here in West Vancouver. In today's video, I'm going to show you how I make my biltong. I think it's about 400 odd videos since the last one that I showed how to make biltong. So it's about high time to update the process because I've made a few changes, small changes to the process, and there's a few people that's asked. So tonight we're making biltong. Now the things that we're going to need to get this biltong made, firstly, is a nice piece of meat. What I generally buy is the eye of round. These ones are from Costco. It's a nice cut of meat to cut biltong from, specifically at the price, because you can pick these up at around $11 a kilo, which is very, very well priced. And it makes great biltong. I mean, this is what I've been using. So I've got 2 eyes of round because that's what can go into my dryer. It's $40 and $37. So I've got $87 worth of meat that I'm going to cut into biltong. Then we get to the spices. Now, this is by far the best biltong spice in my opinion. This is the Safari Biltong Seasoning, Crown National Safari Biltong Seasoning. It is absolutely brilliant. We buy that in, I think it's Africa Trading, out of Africa Trading in Richmond. They sell them in these giant 2 kilo packs, which is what we have to buy because we use a lot of it. And it costs, I think it's about $36 for a 2 kilo pack. So that is the normal one. And then of course my personal favorite, the chili bites. I love the chili bites. Me and Connor eat the chili bites. Belinda and Angelique, they don't like that so much. Anyway, we make biltong every single week because or at least once every 2 weeks, because in my house biltong just goes like crazy, especially when Angelique's friends come over, because they always run to the fridge first to check if there's biltong. Well, they call it dried meat, but anyway, they love it. Okay, so I'm going to go cut these open in the kitchen because I don't think my wife's going to like it if I spill blood over the table. Back now. Okay, cool. So I'm just going to zoom down so you can see what I'm doing here. The first thing, and this is how I always do it, the first thing I do is I cut it in half because it's just too unruly to work with as one giant piece. And then I put that out on that side. Now I'm going to start cutting this. But before I do that, I actually need to, let me just grab some paper towels. Alright, before I do that, what I need to do is I just need to get some spices into my 2 different containers that I'm going to use for the biltong. So the one container is going to be for the normal biltong and the other one's going to be for the chili biltong. Because what I've done, one of the things I'm doing differently these days is I actually let it sit with the spices for a while so that it takes up all the flavor, which is, really cool. Let's get my spice bottles ready. And the chili spice, I need to open this one properly. So there's no need to be shy on the spices. We like our biltong very salty, very spicy. So, we make sure that there's enough of it for the biltong to get the flavor. Okay, so I used to cut the meat against the grain, against the grain across. And then lately I started cutting it differently and I kind of feel like it works better. So once I cut the meat in half once, I do another one. Maybe I must get myself a bigger cutting board, then I can actually start cutting it all in one piece. But anyway, this is how we do it now. Put that one side, and then I just start cutting nice slices for the biltong. And you see now, I cut my biltong with the grain lately. I don't know, I just like it a little bit more like this. And Connor also seems to like it. And then of course the other thing I started doing is I'm cutting it a little bit thicker. Because we're drying it in the dryer, what happens is there's not enough space. So if I do it like I used to, the very thin pieces like biltong sticks, I don't know, it just kind of, I can only get one piece of meat in at a time, and we eat a lot of biltong. And then of course the other thing is, because I am the guy that eats the chili most, I'm also the guy that likes the fat and the, I don't know, it's just the way I am. I like the fat and the skin and the other stuff more than Belinda and Angelique doesn't like that. So I make chili out of the fatty sinewy pieces and nice clean pieces of meat I make normal biltong of, because that's what Belinda and Angelique eats. And this is it. Now we just cut up the whole thing and put it in our spices. Layer it nicely one by one until we've got it full. I'm not gonna, it takes a little bit of time obviously, but it is so worth it. You know, biltong is just, yeah, there's not much I can say. I mean, we just love biltong, no matter how you look at it. And to buy biltong at the store here is just, it's just not viable. You know, it's just way too expensive, honestly. And lately, since I've been fasting, the biltong is my my fast. So I'm doing intermittent fasting, and what that means is I do not eat between 8 p.m. at night and 12 p.m. the next day. It's just intermittent fasting or timed eating or whatever you want to call it. And that was part of the reason I lost so much weight. I've lost, you know, so it's actually quite good. It really works. But now when I need to break my fast in the mornings, I've also started eating a little healthier, I guess, depending on who you ask. Because the first thing I eat after a fast is a slice of biltong, you know, or a piece of biltong. That's the way I break my fast, and I'm pretty sure some people would feel like that's not actually ideal, but for me, it's great. And then, of course, I like to do it with a nice fatty piece of biltong. This one might be a little bit too fatty, but hey, we're not wasting. We're just going to pop that in there, pop that one in there. Anyway, I'm not going to bore you with this whole show, just show you, you know. So what I'll do is I'll speed it up and show you the last little bit. And then we'll take it from there. Alright, so here we are, almost done. You would notice that some of these pieces are probably a little bit more fatty than your average dietitian will tell you to enjoy. But, you know, we have to all have our little pleasures in life, and one of mine is a nice piece of fatty biltong. I really enjoy it. So that's why I'm leaving the fat on. Some people cut off the fat. You can indeed, if you don't like the fat. But like I said, for me, it's one of my little guilty pleasures. I really enjoy a nice piece of fatty biltong, so I'm not going to get rid of it. Let's just get the last load of spices on. So you'll see that I use what? I guess 200 mils out of 2 kilograms. So I guess I get from a pack of spices, I probably get about 15, 20 batches of biltong. So, you know, that's actually not that bad. And if you bear in mind that this was 80 bucks worth of meat, the spices cost $36 for 2 kilos. You know, we're looking at probably around, I guess, about 85 bucks in total for everything that I'm using here. And I'm making a serious amount of biltong. We'll do a little bit of a weigh-in when they're done. That is, if somebody doesn't eat it again before I get to it, because that's unfortunately a problem in this household. When the biltong goes in the dryer, there's vultures that hover around. So as soon as they become dry enough to eat, so within the first 19 hours, 17 to 19 hours, the first pieces of biltong always disappears out of the dryer. So folks, sorry. So there we go. This is how I cut my biltong. This is how I spice my biltong. What I'm going to do now is I'm actually just going to leave it for a couple of hours just for the spices to draw in nicely, and then I'm going to add the vinegar. The vinegar is very important. We let it sit in the vinegar and the spices overnight, because vinegar kills any bacteria or anything that might have gotten into the meat during the process, you know, so it just keeps it nice and safe. But I prefer to normally put the vinegar on only a little bit later, purely because it actually, I want the spices to take on the meat better. Right, so I got it in here. I think what I'm going to do is just give it a nice little bit of a shake around to make sure every piece of biltong is covered with spice. Let's do the same on this side. And there we go. What I'll do is when I come and put the vinegar in, I'll show you what I do, and then the rest tomorrow when we put it in the dryer. Okay, so it's been about 2 hours. The meat's been sitting in the spices for 2 hours. I shook it a couple of times, so I think it should be fine. Now we're going to add the vinegar and let it sit overnight till tomorrow morning when I'm going to load it into the dryer. So for the vinegar, just normal cheap white vinegar. We buy them in 5-liter cans. Belinda uses vinegar for cleaning as well, you know, because vinegar kills bacteria and germs. So what we're going to do is we're going to open up our biltong container, and we're just going to add, you know, about a cup of vinegar. Just make sure we cover most of the meat and that there's some vinegar everywhere. Take care of those whatever bacteria might have gotten into this, and close it up again. I like these containers because they've got these sealable lids. Give it a good shake so we can work it through nicely. Do the same for the other one. And then we let it sit for the night. Suppose that's a little bit more than a cup, but hey, the more vinegar the better. And because we've let the spice, I love the biltong spice. Belinda's looking at me funny. All right, let's shake it up. And that's it, folks. Tomorrow morning we're putting it in the dryer. Good morning, folks. It's the next day and we are going to get the biltong into the dryer. It's been sitting in the fridge in the vinegar and the spices since last night. So about 12 hours, maybe a little more. Anyway, so let me show you our dryer. So this is just a normal dehydrator we bought off of Amazon. And I'm sorry I called it a dryer. Dries my biltong. Anyway, so this is a little dehydrator. It sits right there on the top of the fridge, and that's what I'm going to use to get our biltong dry. Okay, so here we go. We're going to start laying them out on the drying racks. I mean, it's not rocket science, and you don't actually need to leave too much space. They shrink quite quickly, and then they start making space between themselves. As you can see, I cut some nice thick pieces. But these are going to be awesome. The reason I cut the pieces so thick is that it fits in better, because otherwise I can't fit it all into my dryer. Alright, so I'm going to just forward it through this a little bit faster. I'm sure you don't necessarily want to see my whole process here. Okay, that's the normal biltong in. Now we can get to the fatty chili stuff. Just one tip, obviously, is if you have chili biltong and other biltong and you put it in at the same time, always put the chili biltong on the lower shelves, especially if you have people that don't like spicy stuff, because as you can see, it does still have a little bit of juice, so it gets drippy, and if the chili spice drips down onto the lower levels, somebody might get a surprise bite. Not that it's serious, but it's just like, if they are so sensitive to chili as Angelique, then you get complaints. All right. Alright, folks, and there we are. All the biltong packed. We're going to switch on the dryer now. Alright, so there we got all our meat in the dryer. We're just going to close it up. And then I'm setting the temperature to 95 degrees Fahrenheit, which is the lowest temp on the dryer. And then the time to 19.5 hours. I am going to leave it in for 2 sessions like that before I take it out, just because we've got such thick biltong. And there we go, the house gets filled with the smell of drying biltong. Okay, folks, so it's 2 days later. My biltong has been in the dryer for 38 hours. I'm going to take it out and start weighing it quickly, and then it's going to go into the fridge where it settles nicely. Within a day or two, it's great, but it's already good to eat. So let me show you. Oh, forgive what the table looks like. Me and Angelique make candles sometimes, so the whole table is full of candle making stuff at the moment. But we're going to do the biltong too. All right, so let's get the biltong out. So I told the kids not to eat any biltong because I want to weigh it in so that we can see how much biltong we made. I get here this morning and there's a note from Connor saying, yeah, I couldn't hold it, so I ate some biltong, but I've measured it. This is what it weighed. So in other words, we need to add another 56 grams to the weight of the chili bites, because Connor already had some. Okay, so this is our chili bites, all the nice fatty stuff, which some people might say is not healthy, but in my opinion is super healthy. Oh crap, our scale went off. Let me just put it back on. I'm just going to use this to zero it. 1.854 kilograms of chili bites. 1.854 kilos of chili bites. And now the normal biltong. So if you guys remember correctly, it was about $80 worth of meat that I had. And I guess probably about $4 or $5 worth of spices. And then of course the power, electricity. Alright, and 1.936 kilos of normal biltong. So 1.8 and 1.9, that is 3.7 kilos. So roughly it's almost 3.8 kilos. So at about $85, I mean, this is very affordable biltong. Okay, so there you have it. This is how I make my biltong these days. The thing is, a couple of things to remember. When it comes out of the dryer, it's still a little bit wet. So it probably loses about another 10 to 20% of its weight when it goes into the fridge. Also depends on how quick you eat it. Because in the fridge is where it really settles down and it dries a little bit. You know, the inside and the fat settles. It starts looking great. So if we work it down and we say lose another, we had 3.8 kilos of meat with the ones that Connor already ate, 3.8 kilos of biltong for about $80. If we calculate that back down and we say we lose another 10%, so another 380 grams, so it's 3.4 kilos of biltong. So let's see how much that works out to. 80 divided by 3.4. It works out to about $23 a kilo of biltong, which is very affordable. At that rate, we can carry on eating biltong. And in my house, that biltong is going to last a week, 10 days at most. Then it's gone. Then we have to make more. All right. Cheers, guys. Have a good one.